right, Jess, we are back with the Living You podcast. Welcome to another episode, everyone. How are you doing? How are things in the world of Jessica, and what does it mean to be living you this fine day?
Oh, well, we are basically tasting a little bit of spring this week. So, as soon as the sun came out, my life got exponentially better. So, that's great. Although I think today is probably the last day of sun and happiness for a little while.
Again, yes, for clarity, we're in upstate New York. We have a strong seasonal geography and seasons, and we just melted off basically 6 inches or 10 inches of snow, depending on where
Yeah.
we were on elevation. And in the last week or so, kind of disappeared. We're out looking at greenish brown grass, and but it does get everyone thinking spring-like. And we had sun, and I think almost universally everyone was in a better mood instantaneously once you see like
Instantaneously.
65 degrees and you actually get some solar radiation into your skin, and it's like, wow, this is what humans in the actual environment are meant to experience. So, yeah,
Like, ooh, this is what
it
vitamin
is
D feels
nice.
like.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
mean,
yeah, so that got us.
I personally, I'm one of these, Jess, I can cave in pretty good, meaning like I can hang out in a dark, cold, like home base. I like to be homebody. So it takes a lot for me to get kind of like in a funk, but upstate winters are long. And after you get to March and you're definitely kind of like, all right, I think it's time for some warmth. I'm done
Mhm.
with snow and everything. So anyway, we're welcoming it. But like you said, it's going to get cold again, and we're not out of the woods, but it does have everyone thinking spring, and that's what we were going to talk about today, right? We're going to talk about some seller seller perspective things on what one would look for or consider in this 2026 spring market, again, in our local context. But things that would be on a seller's mind, maybe conversations they would have with their agent or things that would help them sell.
Mhm.
Um, what are your initial thoughts on that? Let's talk timing. Let's talk seasonal timing real quick because I have strong thoughts on this, and let me back up a second. When we talk spring market, some people think we're already in it, right? Some people think that doesn't mean that means May or even late May, June, right? Memorial Day is spring. What does it mean to you, and what makes sense around here?
Um, all good thoughts and points. We did touch on this in one of our last episodes, on our myth understandings that, spring was going to be the best time. And it's great to come back to that and define, yeah, what is spring? I think spring is just literally like we were saying, when it starts to get warmer, when you can sustain temperatures that are not freezing, things start to bud a little bit, and you start to get little sniffles and sneezes in, which actually has already started this week for me. Allergy season, I would say, is spring season. No, but I think when your property starts to dry out a little bit, like we do have a pretty significant mud season happening at the moment. And again, we're not out of the woods, but as soon as you can sustain warmer temperatures and people feel like being outside, they will certainly feel like going to see property. And that gives them, the earlier in the year we can get those warm temperatures up, the better. I think buyers are willing to come out a little earlier. Again, they probably have been in a cave, they've been hibernating. I mean, no matter where you are, if you're seasonal, most of the United States has, 4 seasons. You want to get out. You want to get out as soon as possible. If it's just going to open houses, okay, so we're thinking about selling this year, but also being done before the summer, moved in, things like that, because they're going to start school. Kids go back to school in August now. So I think it already gets people thinking as soon as we can sustain any temperatures and houses are not winterized and miserable
Mhm.
to be inside.
Yeah, we're gonna touch on a lot of that stuff. As we go here. I think there's validity to considering anywhere from right now through kind of that May June to be considered spring in different ways, right? So, for example, we just talked about our snow melted, so that means that people that are worried about like driveway access or maybe like to be honest, we just melted all this snow. The rivers are very high, streams are very high. You might have like a drainage culvert or a ditch that might be full of debris and might get clogged. And so there's stuff that like once you're through the big melt off of snow, that kind of feels like you've cleared a hurdle basically, because now like I don't have
Mhm.
to worry about people not being able to get up the driveway, right? Or something along those lines or anything like that. Um, it is amazing, frankly, Jess, how much water is in our land, is in our hills around here. We have these beautiful rolling hills, these big Catskill Mountains, and people don't think about it, but that is, I don't want to go geology on you, but I mean,
Mhm.
this is like this is largely sedimentary rock in our area. This are these slate-ish rock features, these sedimentary rock formations that have been eroded over time, but soils build up on these surfaces through weatherization, anyway, weathering processes.
You
But
went
you
full
have,
geology.
I
You said
did
you
go full
weren't gonna.
geology.
It's good. We
Well, we
love it.
went microgeology, but there's natural springs that are seeping out of hillsides, and people just don't think about it. They think hills are like rock, and it's like a there's a lot more to it. But anyway,
Mhm.
so you might walk back behind your house and think, oh, I'm gonna have a dry hike, and then suddenly every 5 steps you're like, why is it spongy underneath my feet? It's because there's water just bursting out of the hillside because it was contained and soaked up over the winter. Anyway, that's a small part of it, but that always
Is it?
fascinates
Is
me
it though?
as a land hiker of these parcels that I love to do.
But we are right now, like I said, in kind of a micro mud season, and I live on Skenevis Creek.
Mhm.
And I will tell you, as a downstater, that's not a creek. I don't care what you want to call it. That's a river. I have a
Mhm.
raging river. It's literally, there are uprooted trees going by my house. I am like in full on like tsunami mode over here right now. And, you know, we do have what we call level 1 flooding, level 2 flooding, and then level 3 flooding. It would go ahead, you know, would be in my house.
That's your
So
colloquialism, but yes, yeah,
yeah, that's our sometimes we call it DEFCON 1
yeah, yeah, yeah.
or level 1. But we are back at level 0. But yeah, that is happening right now. There's a lot of things to consider, but it all points to we're warming up and we're getting much closer to when people are going to start venturing out and wanting to get these properties sold.
Your creek is particularly cool right where you are because it's a very broad and shallow creek, so it looks very intimidating. It's not actually super deep, but
It
it's
is right now.
probably it's probably what 30 feet wide, at a
No,
normal time
it
of
is
year, right?
70 feet wide.
70 feet wide.
It is not a creek. When people tell me that
Yeah,
this is, I'm like, you're a nuts. It is 70 feet. And right
yeah.
now, the water, you would be up over your head. It would be over your head because there's at least 7 to 8 feet of bank. Like, you know, when you go down and you're in it and it's ankle deep, you can't see over the bank. It's well above your head. You can't really see over into the land. Right now, it's spilling over the banks. So it's up 6, 7, 8 feet higher than it's supposed to be, 70 feet wide. How much water is that? And it's going so fast. I mean, there's trees whipping by my house. This is not at all what we were supposed to talk about.
No, no.
But it's
We'll decide.
terrifying.
We'll decide whether this stays in. CJ might. We might edit this out. Um,
It might also be
let's.
interesting.
It might be. So the part what I was trying to get at with my water out of the hills and your width of the creek thing is, I truly believe that there's a lot of agents that have conversations with their potential sellers at this time of year, saying, or have been saying it frankly for months in the winter, saying, let's wait till spring because things will look better, right? So I want to clarify what look better or optimal
Means.
is.
Hmm.
Again, in our area, you go south an hour, it's different. You go north an hour, it's different. But for where we are, like I'm looking outside my window, Jess, it's kind of gross out there, right? We had white snow for a while, and that's kind of pretty in its own way. Now we've got this dead brown grass, and like you said, there's mud. There's still some like slushy snow sticking around. Like it's a challenge, to be completely honest, to get great outdoor photography at this time of year, and that's going to remain the case probably until late April, early May. Grass will start to grow in April, right? I distinctly remember every year because I mow my own lawn and it's a chore, and I always am like, ugh. The first couple lawn mows are super exciting because it's fun. You got the machine out, you're conquering my land and my world.
Man,
But after like
man, Mo.
4 lawn mows, you're kind of like, oh yeah, this is a chore. I forgot how redundant this gets. But either way, I always track that first lawn mow of the season because I think it kind of tells where spring has progressed. And I think last year I mowed my lawn for the first time at the very end of April. But before that, it's been like the first week of May. So that's generally, in my mind, for me, that's spring. Spring means the lawnmower came out and I had to like start cutting
Mm-hmm.
the grass.
Yeah.
Um, so the lawns might start to perk up. But if you want like aerial photography or if you want beautiful green forests, you're not getting true leaf cover until later in May or even into June to some extent. So you're going to get the, again, this is why am I such a biologist ecologist type, but we're getting the buds that are going to they're going to bud from the leaves in the next few weeks, but it'll take them a while to fully leaf, and then you'll have the true foliage by June. So there's a really beautiful progression. I
I
actually have
love it.
often wanted to do a
Yeah.
time lapse of
Yes.
like because people do time lapses of fall foliage, but I want to do a time lapse of spring growth.
Of
You know what
everything
I'm saying?
budding. It is so
And yeah,
beautiful up here. Yeah. And there's for a couple of years, with the exception of last year, for a couple of years there was literally it felt like it was an overnight burst where it was like one day in May I woke up and everything was green. It felt like there was a line in the sand and the next day was spring. It was incredible. Last year I think it was a little bit more of an evolution and it took a little bit more time, but it's you can literally wake up one day randomly in May and full on you're ready to go. Here's spring. But I think if we're talking about how that affects the real estate market, and there's tools and tricks in the trade. We don't advocate, lying or misrepresenting anything, but you can clean up a property. You can add some green grass. You can pop the colors a little bit, in
oh, you
post
mean
and
through like
edit.
editing or even nowadays
Yeah,
like
you can.
AI
Right,
adjusting?
exactly. And
Yeah,
you can. So the one of the things that we use now, our photographer uses something like no matter it was like pouring out, and it looked like it was a sunny day, and he literally had to go and take the droplets off of the windows, but it looked like it was shot on a beautiful sunny day. So we also could help the photos look better now more than we used to. And I think people understand within a few months it's going to look like that anyway, or within a few weeks. So I don't think sellers, if they're ready to go, and that's what we said in our last pod was, if they're ready to go now, it doesn't matter if there's mud. It doesn't matter if there's snow. It doesn't matter if it's beautiful. It really doesn't matter. If you're ready to go now, now is the best time to do it. And we'll do everything we can to represent that property in the most beautiful, marketable way.
yeah, yeah. That's all I wanted to get at was, but there is that little caveat of like if an agent is saying to you, "Oh, it's gonna look gorgeous in March or April," truthfully, it won't naturally look that gorgeous. We can make it look as like you just said, we'll do our best. It'll look fine, but it won't look truly green, vibrant until May. I don't know why I belabored that issue so much, but I always track that. I always think it's fascinating. Okay, does a seller care about buyer activity at this time of year? I mean, that seems like a no-brainer. But like, what would a potential seller going to put their house in the market this season? What do they want to pay attention to? Should they pay attention to anything, or should they just follow their own timeline?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Look, I have some stats in front of me, but I want to see your thoughts.
I mean, again, like I said, the best time for you is always whatever the best time is for you. Um, I would say, and it's probably on your list, and I might be. Okay. Yep. So there's dogs here in the studio today. It's bring your dog to work day. No, thank you, sir. Um, I think the best thing for any seller at any time actually is it really spring, specific, but that's spring clean, right?
Mm,
Decluttering, spring
100%.
cleaning. I mean, just get in the nooks and crannies, get it dusted. Maybe get a cleaning lady for the spring to come and do a deep clean. That would be the best thing I think people could do is declutter, put things away, get some stuff into storage. The garage is already full, the basement's already full. I don't care. Get some bins from Walmart, get the clutter away, put it away, get it cleaned really well. That's all I want people to do. I don't necessarily want them to do a whole bunch of work and stuff. I think no matter what time of year it is, it's always best to do that. But the spring, everyone just feels like doing that. Like, let's throw out all the junk we haven't used in 8 months, and start fresh. So that would be my first initial reaction. Just declutter it and get it cleaned.
So you're talking because you're the interior specialist here. I feel like I'm the exterior specialist in a way. Like that's kind of how we divide our mentality. But
Hmm.
I think so. Decluttering is always a good idea, whether it's spring, summer, fall, whatever, right? In terms of outside stuff, there's a lot you'd really spring cleaning is a legit thing, right? But you want to make sure you're like I said earlier, the driveway. Make sure it's. You might want to get a load of gravel. Like again, every house is different. Someone has a paved driveway, some might have gravel, but if you have a rough, think about it from the buyer's perspective, right? We're talking first impressions, right? So a much better first impression is a seller that might invest a small amount of money into having a landscaper or a clean out crew come out and drop a little load of gravel to refresh that entry, that walkway up to your house, that stone walkway, like weed whack it or whatever, like just make it nice. Like you don't have to spend a ton of money. This is one of the highest return on investment things, is just make the exterior approach as good as you can for as little investment of money and a little bit of time. Clean your gutters. You know what's really, really unappealing is when a buyer looks up at the gutters of a house and they see little saplings growing out of the gutter, because they're like, wow, that's been so unattended for 6 years that there's
That there's
literally
trees.
seedlings growing in the biomass that's accumulated in the gutter. That's not a great sign of a well-maintained home, to be
Not at
completely
all.
honest. And you could just deduce or reduce the price right there based on those little saplings in the gutter. Every time I see that, I'm like, what else has not been paid attention to for 6 or 7 years, right? So, like,
True.
I mean, hire a handyman, clean out the gutter, power wash the house is a good idea. Again, you got to be careful with their siding type, depending on what's on your house, but or at least some kind of a light power wash, a power scrub. Same thing for like your deck maybe or your stone walkway. That little bit, that 6 hours on one weekend, would make the buyer so much more optimistic about how the rest of that showing is going to go.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Curb appeal is huge, and that's why there's that term, curb appeal. Literally is a real estate term that's just as important as everything else. But yes, at least the approach to the house, just the walkway coming into the house. It doesn't have to be all around the whole thing. Doesn't necessarily have to be done right then in early spring or late winter. But definitely the approach should be like we had that listing recently. Like there was like I think the mailbox got like hit by a car, and like we saw pieces of the mailbox when we went to do like the listing presentation. And I was like really hoping, like totally forgot to say, like maybe you did, but I totally forgot to say, like make sure that pieces of the mailbox aren't there when we start showing. But I was happy that when I did go to do the first showing, the mailbox was back. So little things like that, and things happen all the time, especially with rural properties. And make sure there's no dead birds around or anything. Yeah, so do a little bit of that. That definitely goes a long way.
Yeah, all those, yeah, all that, those sticks that have fallen, clean up that. Anyway, okay, so that covers kind of the visual appeal of what you can do with a minimal kind of investment. Now I'm gonna go back into buyer behaviors. I'm looking at a little piece of data I pulled earlier. So we sometimes deep dive into data, Jess, and sometimes we'll just do a light data scrub. So I just
Hmm.
asked, frankly, my AI what nationally, um, well, Northeast actually. So we have some seasonality, but what are the peak contract periods? So there's actually a contract peak in May and June, and then a secondary peak in September. So think about that. That's your serious spring buyers who came out. They were waiting all winter. They're ready to buy. Things are popping, and they're ready to go into contract immediately. And then a lot of time it slows down a bit, not a lot, but it slows down a bit over the duration of the
For the
proper
summer.
summer because school is out, people are active and enjoying life. And then as you kind of prep to go back into the school year or whatever, people kind of have another little secondary bubble. And up here
Hmm.
we get definitely foliage listings and foliage contracts. So for up here, September, October are high contract months. And then of course they don't
Hmm.
close until your November, December because of the delay. So if you look at actual closings, that doesn't track. But if you look at contract, written contract moments, there's a May, June and a September, October.
That's interesting. So you'd think, contract might be 1 to 2 months after listing, right?
Yeah.
If you're kind of doing the things well. So that's great. And also, I always feel like the sellers that step out a little earlier, they're not lumped into, because when there's only so many buyers, right? So then all of a sudden, if the inventory, and that's what we're talking about, are we going to swing the other way and have too much inventory this year because we've had not enough inventory? So that's why I say you always want to position yourself in the market when your home's going to stand out. And that may not be in peak spring. It might be the minute your house looks beautiful, the minute you kind of have all your ducks in a row, get out a little early so those serious buyers see your house first and get you into contract. Don't wait for, like, because I think that's what happened last year. We had sort of a late pop where it was like May and June and July, we had the most listings go up.
Yes.
And okay, so there's going to be somebody that misses out. There's going to be houses that get missed, or there's going to be buyers that just see so many things, they just make themselves crazy. So I also advocate for finding the perfect sweet spot for you and your property. Don't get lumped in with everybody. If you have to sell when everybody sells, that's great. We'll make it work. Again, then you have some other things to consider to stand out, and then you definitely want to be priced well. You don't want to be overpriced when there's 50 things to look at, because that's not going to happen.
I mean, this remains probably the single most important concept for a seller to understand is this is
Price.
no longer the price it where you want to market. It truly isn't. You have to rely on your agent for some expertise to help you position that property. If you actually want to sell the property, you have to price it to where the eyeballs are going to be, and not just the eyeballs, but the actual the actual written offers are going to be. So the days of, yeah, I can list high and negotiate down, and oh, we can wait. You
No.
can do that if that's your choice, but be prepared to wait.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't want to do
and or
that.
price reduce and or play those days on market games. So again, that's
Right.
not like we don't do this pod just to like say come list with us or anything like that. But this is just a general principle. If I want to, we talked about this the last time we met. If I want to put a product on any market, why would I want to be the highest priced one when it might not be the best? Like, why would I
Right.
overprice anything? Right? Just
Right.
if
Know your
your goal
market,
is
know
to
your
sell it.
consumer. Yep, know your consumer. And we also talked about appraisal on one of the last ones, which was interesting. Like, is the appraisal the same as the market value? No. So you can even go and get an appraisal and be way off, because that's
Mhm.
just another opinion. That's comps, that's dollars and cents. Maybe that is lower than what you should get. Maybe that is higher than what you should get. It all comes down to, what is a buyer willing to pay? You have to get the buyer in the door. The higher you are, the less buyers walk in the door, or like we said, they may not even call at all. So
Yep.
now no buyers are coming in the door. When that happens for 2 or more weeks, you got a problem. It's price.
Yep. And so you just spoke a little bit about buyer mentality. So let's go into what I know this pod we're trying to focus on seller mindset for the spring, but we also have to be cognizant of the buyer mindset. What are they up against? So I'll explain some of the context. We're actually seeing a slight increase recently in first-time home buyers for the first time in a while. That's a good news. Maybe they're able to save a little bit more. But again, we're recording this in early mid March of 2026. Right now, mortgage interest rates are just about 6%, a little over. They had dropped a tiny bit below 6. Now they're back up. Now we've also engaged in some, the geopolitical landscape is highly fluid right now. We're not going to go into a ton of that, but truly buying momentum slows down as you increase uncertainty about the national economy. And the national economy is tied to geopolitics, right? So the more weird stuff that is happening in the world, the less confident buyers are going to be to make that huge decision in their life. So there's a little pumping of the brakes. We have a solid mortgage rate for what has been the last couple of years. It's on
Hmm.
the better side of where we've been. Housing affordability remains a challenge, especially in the face of what we talked about recently: increased utility costs, increased home insurance costs, increased general cost of living. So buyers have it hard. If you're wanting to sell, don't make it harder. Again, that's that overpricing part. People will buy, they are saving, they're prepared, but they're not prepared to overpay for this thing that you think is worth more than it actually is. That's kind of my sentiment on buying mindset for where we are right now.
No, that makes sense. The emotional value that people assign, on both sides. Again, that's like, why is there a bidding war? Because people love the house and they can't lose it. Why are things overpriced? Because the homeowner that's been there has renovated or taken care of this or done this. There's an emotional value to their things, on both sides, that really shouldn't play a factor. Sometimes it does, but it really shouldn't play a factor, especially when you're pricing. Because again, the whole idea is not testing the market. Don't test the market. When people say, let's just test the market, don't test the market, because you're going to fail. You may fail. And then what happens now? What is the buyer psychology behind the house that comes on way too high and then gets pulled off?
Yeah.
Buyers are, this seller's not realistic, and we've talked about that before.
Seller's not realistic. Something's wrong with it.
Something's wrong
it's
with
a
it.
litany of these things that
And
are
you
just,
don't
they're not
want that.
positive.
You don't want bad press on your listing. I mean, I literally had a seller that we couldn't sell. It was 4 weeks, and I'm always 4 weeks in, and like, let's have a conversation. And after 4 weeks, he goes, well, I understand a price reduction, and that might help get more buyers, but what does it say if we raise the price? And I had this moment of like, I don't even want to explore this, because first of all, I'm not raising the price. But second of all, it does say the opposite. It says we've had so much activity, right, that we have too many offers and we don't know what to do. So we're just going to raise the price to thin the herd. Yeah, it might say that. But when you have no activity, that is not the answer. That's not the remedy. Raise the price, which I thought was incredible. I said, please just give me one more week at this price. And thankfully, I sold it that week. I didn't have to raise the price. But yeah, so everything you do on the market lands on the buyer and has a perception. Whether it's right or wrong doesn't matter. Their perception is their reality. Something's wrong with the house. The seller's unrealistic. So when you come back out at a more realistic price, they may just skip it. Because especially if you come back out and there's 10 other houses to look at in their price range, they're skipping it. So don't kill your own listing is my best advice. Yeah.
I mean,
I know
I think
you're
your
a high
advice is-
guy. If you want to list high, call Rich.
No, that's not my mentality. But I also,
You're a
I
high
do want to
guy.
give, I like autonomy. So I think some agents think that they need to drive the dialogue or the narrative or the process more than I do. I want this to be your decision. I want to present you with options, right? There is an option to list on the high side and hope. That's an option. But there's potential consequences. I want to run you through the gamut of options and potential consequences and make it's a decision that's best for you. So I don't want to just be like, this is what I would do, so this is what you should do, because I fundamentally, I am not you. I don't know your inner workings of your brain and your mindset. So again, that's how I operate. But as an agent, I'd prefer to sell the thing, right? Because that's my business.
It's for everybody,
But
right?
but I still
you're
think
right.
there
It should be.
yeah, it should be the owner's decision on how they treat their property and their selling process.
Yes, and I do agree with that. This is not a disagreement. And sometimes they really don't know what's best. And I'm gonna lean heavily sometimes on, hey, I really don't think we should do that, and here's why. And you can still make a decision, but there may be times where I really
I'm not saying I don't
lean
advise. I'm
into
not
it.
saying I don't give.
No, but I
like if
watched
something
you do
seems
it,
really
and
foolish.
yeah, but I've watched you do it, and you do and I literally said it was a masterful job of talking through all the options without making the seller feel any kind of way that they were right or wrong. Like, just here's all yeah, we can talk through that too, and yep, that could be an issue, but here's the other thing. Like, it was an incredible neutral, menu of options for them that I think that they really appreciated, and I did too, just kind of witnessing that, where my style is like, so here's what I would do, and maybe here's what I would do really doesn't matter. But again, it's really up to that seller. Like you said, I think at the end of the day, no one knows anything. We don't have a crystal ball. It comes down to, what is a buyer willing to pay for this house? Nobody knows who the buyer is. Nobody knows where they're coming from. Nobody knows whether they're upstate, downstate, across the state. We don't know. There's no crystal ball. So all you should do is price it where people are going to be interested and actually call me and want me to show it to them. That's what we should be focused on, and then we'll take it from there.
Yep. I also think the days of, the days of, how do I want to phrase this? I think I think the buyer appetite for making improvements is decreasing as well, and that's
Mm-hmm.
largely because of in our area specifically, contractor availability is low. So even if there are good contractors, they're booked and they're busy. They're hard to get a hold of. Some people want to. Now there is always a niche of the DIYer or the fix and flip or the people that have the experience and want to do it themselves. That's a great opportunity. You can find these more unrefined homes and put your own stamp on it. Great, and you're going to get it
Mm-hmm.
at a lower cost. Let's set that aside. Let's put the your I don't want to call it average, but a person that doesn't have the ambition or the skill or the network to get professionals in and do a bunch of stuff. So I think what I see is the cost of materials, all this other stuff, the availability of contractors. I think it's making it more incumbent on the owner to not necessarily change the things, but like, has your furnace been tuned up in a couple years, right? Because I think you have what I'm trying to get at is most buyers are going to do a home inspection, right, Jess? So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we advise a seller to maybe you'd even do a pre-listing inspection so that you have a knowledge of what might be flagged. That's an option. I like that option. I don't always push for it, but it's a strong option. But I think you should have an idea that this home at some point will be scrutinized pretty highly. So let's look at the things that we think. I'm not a home inspector, but I can tell you a couple things that I'm pretty sure are going to be scrutinized,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let's look at those, and if we can address those in a light way, can we tune up the furnace? Can we, like I said, clean out those gutters? Can we do some light paint touch up on baseboards that are banged up by the dogs and stuff like that? Goes a long way towards, again, it's the visual appeal, but also when someone does put it under a microscope, we can probably at least like manage that process a little better by getting ahead of it. I think fundamentally, Jess, I think I often just want to get ahead of the curve on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if I see a potential roadblock, I'd want to at least, like, you might not be able to remove the whole roadblock, but like know where the detour is, right? Know
Mm-hmm.
the way around it, or have an off ramp. I don't know if my analogy is not going anywhere.
No,
That's
no, no.
the
It's what, no, no. But I
literal
think,
no detour.
but I think one of the things for if we're talking to sellers, and prepping and thinking about coming on the market, it's those big ticket items. Like, don't worry about, hey, should I replace the fridge? Like, no, no, no. Is the septic good? Has that been, do
Pump
you
your
know
septic.
where it
Oh my
is?
goodness.
Like,
You know what's
pump your
the
septic.
we were going to
Like,
talk about, like, sorry, I'm going to cut across you, but these high return on investment things. Do you know how much peace of mind it is to say, "Oh, I had a professional come out a week
and,
before we listed it,
hmm
pump my septic tank, visual inspection, and that thing has a document from a professional company that says this thing looks
document.
good." That is like
Correct.
gold. That is
Gold. Do that.
gold.
Pump your
Because
septic. Check. Make sure your well is good.
yeah.
Your systems, guys. Your furnace, your oil, whatever heating system you run. If you have central air, whatever those things are, make sure your major systems, your roof. If your roof is leaking, you might want to address that before we go on, or be prepared to give a hefty credit for a roof. Like, you don't have to do the work, and I advocate not doing the work, but you also can't then ask for a higher price. You have to
Mhm.
price accordingly. You have to say, hey, I'm priced because of the roof. I'm priced because you're going to have to put a new furnace in this thing. Those are the only things. Don't worry. Like, I love the curb appeal. I love decluttering. You don't have to do any of that stuff if you say, listen, all the systems are up and running beautifully. You got to clean it yourself. No problem. A buyer will buy that all day. Or there's no weird structural issues like the support beams and everything look clean in the basement. Like, clean your basement. Sometimes, like, get a dehumidifier, stick it in your basement so it doesn't smell musty when somebody comes in. I mean, just those are the major things that people are going to worry about. And those are the big ticket items where someone's going to come back to you and say, we want a $20,000 credit, a $10,000 credit, a $50,000 credit because of all these major systems issues that came up on the inspection report. They don't give a shit about how many flowers you planted outside or, like, what color the living room is. They don't care. They don't care where your couch is. At the end of the day, if we have to rank most important, take care of those systems first.
That's such good advice. I love that. Quick sidebar. Let's talk about homes that are winterized. So, in our area, we have a large number of secondary home owners, meaning they're a vacation home, and oftentimes they just shut them in whatever October, November, December, and They don't open them back up. What that means, if you don't know winterization, it basically means you turn down the heat either all the way or down to a very low level. Most of the time, it means draining your water from all your fixtures in the house. You
You
drain your
don't turn
water
down your
heater,
heat
you
without
turn off
draining your
your
water.
well pump, so the house is basically dry so that the concept is you don't want burst pipes because that can be a major flood problem. So oftentimes you winterize the home. Here's some of the downsides of winterized homes, Jess, and
Hmm.
we'll go and then I'll get into spring. But winterized homes get really cold inside, especially if you have the heat completely off. So we can show a home in December, January, February, and it's maybe 15, 20 degrees outside, and that's cold, and it's a miserable day. The worst thing is you walk into a house and it's colder, and it actually is.
Hmm.
These things
Oh,
really hold
yes,
the cold in them. It's
yes.
so unpleasant to
I'm not
be in
showing
a
your
in a
house.
freezing hold.
I'm not.
Freezing cold winterized home. So that my point is, even into the spring, we might be 65 degrees outside today. You go in from a sunny 65-degree day into a cold winterized house, it's gonna feel
Forget it.
weird. It's not
I'm
gonna feel like
leaving.
a home.
I'm leaving
It's a
immediately.
it's an odd experience. So again, I do it regularly because that's a sort of a normative thing up here, but it is not the best experience for the buyer, right?
It's awful,
So
and it's awful for the agent, especially when they're like me with Mediterranean blood and want to be in the sun. I want to be in 90 degrees, and I would be so comfortable. I need like a heat rock. Um, but but I think our point of advice is winterize your home if you're not going to be there. Do not just turn the heat down. Like, don't cause yourself more expensive problems later on. You may have to winterize your house, and maybe then we do have to wait to list it, just depending on that specific situation. There are also buyers that don't care. They understand. They've been in country homes before. They have one too, but definitely do it if you're going to turn down your heat or not be there for the winter. Do it, winterize it, and we'll deal with it. But it is. I still have nightmares of showing of my feet being frozen because like, oh, can you
didn't
take your shoes off and walk on
oh
the
and you
slate floor?
And you just had one recently where you were at a final walkthrough and the water was turned on to like check a faucet and suddenly there
The
was a leak,
minute
right? Yeah.
we and the and I was actually just a stand-in for the buyer's agent, but the buyer's agent and the seller's agent advised the buyer we really shouldn't de-winterize. I know you want to run water and make sure it works. We'd rather leave something in escrow. No, no, no. The water has to be on for the walkthrough. I want to see the water flowing. And as soon as the agent turned it on, the pipe literally burst right in front of her face. So, yeah, so now the seller has to correct that. And it's like, really? But, it's fine. Burst pipes, and this was a very minor, thankfully it was just an elbow popped out somewhere in the basement. But yeah,
So
it's a thing.
we're in the era of instantly accessible information. But I did a search earlier. So again, for our specific like kind of geographic area, we don't consistently get above freezing temperatures overnight. So our low temp isn't consistently above freezing until late April. So
Yeah,
if you were gonna try to de-winterize, don't do it too early because if you were to try it because it's 65 degrees today, wonderful. But guess what? It's gonna be like 17 in a night or two. So
yeah.
we're not gonna be on easy street until April or late April.
Correct. I mean, even into May, we've gotten a frost. I remember my first summer here, the first spring summer that we had bought our house in November of 2021. So we were excited for the spring and the warm weather. So I went and I bought rose bushes, and someone said, "Don't put them out. Don't put them out until after Memorial Day. Don't plant anything. You're still gonna get a." I was like, "There's no way." I literally waited until my grandmother's birthday, which is the May 13th, and I planted a rose bush for her in the front, and like within a week we had a frost. I mean, yeah, it was terrible. So, no joke, like don't put anything in the ground until after Memorial Day weekend. Like I do all my planting Memorial Day weekend. So yeah, it's just you still could well into May get that frost, and that might be a one-off, just one night, one overnight. But yeah, it's the longer you can wait, probably the better.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, so that kind of concludes the what I wanted to cover for this topic. Um, nothing really popped into my head additional in our conversation right here. I wonder, I mean, seller perspective.
Mm-hmm.
spring issues. We talked
Mm-hmm.
about looks. We talked about
Mm-hmm.
systems. We talked about pricing. Oh, here's one. Here's one. So let's say we take photos today because that's when they want to put it on the market, and the outside doesn't look great. It's a little brownish. It's a little. Would you, as an agent, offer to come back in 6 weeks if we're not in contract and do a photography refresh? Is that
A
an
thousand
option? Is
percent.
that viable? Is that a
I would do
you know?
that. I think I would first look at the digital option and see if that looks good. I mean, sometimes the digital option looks perfectly fine. If it looks a little wonky, yeah, I'll go back and shoot it. Absolutely. Absolutely, I would.
Yep.
Because you got to do everything you can. I think what really annoys me too, and this is why we want to do this podcast, is like it's the bad eggs out there. There's a lot of great agents, but sellers need to do their homework. The person that just puts your listing in the MLS to die and doesn't do anything else and doesn't update and doesn't have honest conversations with you about marketing or pricing or photography, or is just shooting on their cell phone. I'm seeing like 5, 6, 7, 8 $900,000 houses with cell phone pictures, and I have like a mini panic attack, and I have to ask God, why is this happening? So just make sure that you do your due diligence as a seller. Look at what your listing agent does. Look at their website, look at their current listings, and I always say be like a secret shopper and actually call on a listing and see how they handle you. Be very diligent, ask a lot of questions, look at their stuff, and just know that what they're doing right now, like the worst of what they're doing, is probably what you're going to get. So just, I know I got into a long-winded thing, but if this is what we're doing and helping people for the spring, you don't have to use us, right? But you should use the best agent you can find, the one that you know is being honest with you, the one that's not afraid to push back and actually educate you on things, but also the one that listens to you and considers what you need. There's a balance to that. If they just tell you everything you want to hear, that should be a red flag as well. But
Yeah.
professional photography. Just
Yeah. I mean,
just get better photography.
that's been your mantra for a long time. And so,
Yeah.
full disclosure, when I first started as an agent seven plus years ago, I was not I was not hiring a professional photographer for the vast majority of my first couple of years. I am now for the most part, and I enjoy it. First of all, because the product is better than I could do, and I mean, sure, there's a minimal expense, but in the grand scheme of things, if I want to be a professional agent, I should know my limitations. I am not a photographer. I don't have the highest end equipment, and I should trust the professional to provide the service to me that allows me to provide the service to you. And if anyone, I don't want to like,
I know,
I don't
but
want to be
sometimes things,
anti-agent, but any agent that
I
doesn't
know.
understand that kind of bothers me.
I want to say, okay, so this is what I want to say, Rich. This is what you want to say too. The house sometimes sells anyway,
Yeah.
despite a horrendous agent with horrendous marketing and awful, ugly photography and a grammatically incorrect, like, what are they talking about description. I read them sometimes and I cringe. Please just speak English next time. And those houses could sell anyway. So these agents are rewarded for bad
Mm.
behavior on a very large scale. If buyers stopped looking at houses, and they're not going to, but in a perfect world, buyers wouldn't even click on a house that the first photo is a toilet with the seat up. Or I love like the weird it's like the front of the house, and then it's like the laundry room, and then it's like outside, and then you're in the bedroom, and then all of a sudden you're outside again. I'm like, is there a portal? Or are we like warping between rooms here? Are we like, there's a hole in the floor that all of a sudden I'm in the backyard
It's so
after I was
true.
in the laundry room? Don't
That's
do that. But though
ultimate
houses
pet peeve
sell,
of mine too. Yeah.
yes, but houses sell anyway, and that's why agents get away with it, and that's why they continue to do it. But as a seller, you deserve better. You deserve better. You're going to pay them a commission, which of course you get to negotiate, but you're going to pay them a commission. Don't get the cheapest guy, the discount, because you think you're going to make more money and they're not going to put any effort into it. Don't do
Also,
that.
it might not
Pay.
be a discount. It might just be
I
worse
know they might,
service for the same price.
yeah, for the same price as somebody else that'll actually do a lot more for you. So that's what we're just asking you to do: your homework, do your due diligence, and yeah, and you deserve better. You deserve the best. You deserve the best agent. I want you to have the best agent in your area. I really do. And someone who deserves your business because they're actually a professional. I know it might sound harsh, but these are just my beliefs and my opinions, and this is the standard I hold myself to. And I wish that all agents held themselves to a standard, and treated it like a business and not like they have to do everything. You don't have to do everything.
Yeah.
Hire help.
It's part of why we have these conversations. It's part of why we started this podcast, Jess, is like, not that we're not the best, right? But we try to be
Well, I
people
think
that
I am.
act with integrity. We act with best interest of the client at heart, and we want to provide the best service we can. I said this, I think, on our like a week ago when we did this, but I just don't know that that's where everyone's starting place is in this industry, and I wish it was. I think there's a lot of me first and not much you first, my client.
Well, it's the
That's a
expectation
struggle
of
that we're always
when
going
they
to have
get
to deal
in,
with.
they think it's a job or something, and like they're scrambling to make their first commission, and then people just get comfortable with the amount of money that they make and not spending anything. They need to net as much as possible, and we understand because it's expensive to live your life. They have expenses, they have kids, they have mortgage, whatever, groceries, gas is going up again. Things are very expensive. So agents feel they have to hold every dollar of that commission. It has to go into their pocket. So they are going to do everything so that they can earn every dollar. I love that. And I understand why you need to do that. But also, are you making the best choices for your business? Like, I don't care what things cost me. I think about I don't think about this is what this costs. I think about what is this net? Okay, so what can I reasonably take away from this commission, this sale, this whatever, after I've paid my photographer, my transaction coordinator, my showing assistant, whatever my system is, so that I'm not scrambling and people aren't waiting on me. Because a lot of times when you have all these things start piling up, someone's waiting on you. And time is money. And now you drop a ball or you do this or you mess something up or something is done incorrectly because you're scrambling to do everything. Or things are lagging that they shouldn't, and people are not being communicated with that deserve to be communicated with more timely. So you can't do it all. You shouldn't do it all, and it's not a criticism. I'm helping you too, agents. Run it like a business. I can help you do that.
Wow, you shifted full into agent advice mode.
I
So
did,
this is
and I
where
didn't.
we
I
walk
didn't
this
want to
fine
do
line
that.
between, like, we want to talk to people, but we also want to like give our insider tips to agents, like, be better.
Well, I want to help everybody. I mean, but this is what, we're telling sellers right now to call around and speak to agents. So I'm like, while you're doing that, let me tell the agents, like, when they call you, here's what you do. So
Can't take the coach out of you.
I can't, you'll never get the coach out of me because I do want it to be, I want everyone to be, happy. That's a great way to end
It's a
this
great way.
episode. It's a
is
great way to end it.